He can find his own way home because I'm not coming to the airport. We're done. By the time he comes back, I will have the divorce papers ready.
Hi friends! This episode of Chai Day Friday, I'm going to be spilling the tea on divorce. I'll be speaking with guests who have either been through it themselves or had parents get divorced. This Chai Day Friday, I'm enjoying a very special cup of chai from my friends over at Bala Chai. They're a small family-owned business, and let me tell you, their chai is amazing. It's a concentrated chai powder with revitalizing Ayurvedic spices that are traditionally used to support circulation and aid the digestive system. They use fresh spices and adaptogens in their mix to promote steady long-term energy without the crash. And I'm gonna be needing that for this heavy topic. Divorce is incredibly taboo in the South Asian community, and women whose marriages end in divorce are often looked down upon. They're seen as the ones who were unable to keep their marriage together. Never mind that their husbands may have been the absolute worst. But our culture, as amazing and rich as it is, loves to coddle men and put them on a pedestal. They can do no wrong. This Chai Day Friday is going to be split up into 3 parts, each featuring a special guest. For this first part, I'm thrilled to bring on my high school friend Mythili so she can share her personal story. I'm going to give you all a trigger warning here for emotional abuse, verbal abuse, body shaming, and suicidal thoughts. Without further ado, let's dive right in. Hey Charlie, you're so
Who's
cute.
that? Who's that?
My first guest in this episode of Chai Day Friday is one of my top pals from high school, Mythili Hari. And
Hi, everybody.
thank you for being here, Mythili.
Anything for my best friend.
Thank you so much. I know this is like a tough subject, and I really just appreciate you willing to be open and accessible, and like this is going to help people because, you know, the stigma around divorce, it's there, it exists. Especially for South Asian women. I definitely appreciate you being here.
Of course. Anytime, anytime.
How long were you married for?
So technically married for 6 years. This was back in 2013. I would say around October, November time. Oh, sorry, 2012. Wow. Okay, no, let's go back 2012. It was like one of those Barth matrimony matches that came up. My parents were into the horoscope thing. So it's an arranged marriage. So, you know, coming from being an American Indian, you know, growing up to, I was very like studious and I just never really thought about boys. I was too scared to even talk to boys, you know, talk about boys. I mean, I would, you know, I had my crushes and I had my all that. But, you know, when it came to like settling down with someone, I just couldn't think of falling in love and all that. That concept was very, I guess you could say, new to me because being the eldest of my siblings too, I had a certain path I needed to follow or like being a role model, so to speak. So, you know, I always had the like notion of what if I fell in love? I didn't want to have to choose between him and my family if my family didn't accept. So I'm like, you know what, parents, it's all you. Find someone for me. It's not like I didn't have a choice. You know, of course, I had the choice of saying yes or no. And you always have that in arranged marriages. It's not like the first guy that comes across, you have to marry him. No. So started talking that way after the parents saw the horoscopes and stuff. It wasn't even that long, maybe a couple weeks. And then I told him that I was coming to India in December of 2012 because my cousin was getting married. And it happened to be in the same city in Hyderabad where she was getting married and where he's from, or where he lives at the moment, I would say. And decided, hey, when we're there, if you're free, let's catch up. So we went, we talked, seemed kind of casual, but it just seemed like it was a repetitive what we have already been talking for the past couple weeks. And then the next day he calls me up and then he's like, I don't think this is going to work out, just cultural difference. You know, I'm like, okay, fine. Matches come, matches go. So, you know, whatever. I didn't really think much of it. We came back and then hadn't heard from him. Hadn't heard from him in a couple months. And then like around mid-March or something, I get an email from him and he starts saying, you know, hey, just wanted to get some information about veterinary medicine for my cousins and stuff. Long story short, it was just an excuse to try to get to talk to me again. He was like, oh, I can't seem to forget about you. I've seen other girls, but just something about you. Okay, great. It was like destiny, fate, whatever you call it. My dad happened to go into India in April. And then he went to and talked to his family. Everything seemed okay, checked out. And so we couldn't go back and forth a lot. So we had like a virtual engagement on Skype in May of 2013. And then ideally, I think we wanted a December wedding. Oh, well, there's like great auspicious times in August. Let's just get married in August.
Right.
And so, and then after that, it was just a scramble. Mind you, the only time that I met him was that 2012 one day, like couple hours of a lunch meet. That's it.
How did you feel about just having this short window of time?
You know, it was it just felt like everything was happening so fast. My parents were like, it's up to you if you think, and I talked to all my friends. I remember, talking to you guys about it, some of my other family friends too. And it's just they're like, make a list, make a pros and a cons list, and I had really had nothing bad to say about him. He seemed like he was a good guy, respects the family, respects elders, and everything seemed fine. Like I had no reason to say no to him. The fact that it was happening so fast, I think it didn't hit me till basically the wedding happened. My mom went to India, started getting all the shopping done. Normally, yes, ideally, I would have loved to have done that for myself.
Yeah, I remember you had like, you loved Disney and you had like your Disney like
My fairy
wedding.
tale wedding.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like I would have wanted that.
He's an ex now, so you get a second chance.
Exactly.
Yes.
Literally, I took a month off from work
Mhm.
and I went the week before we got married. Got married 2013 August and stayed there 3 weeks after. And then, we came back and then started his green card application. And even during that 3 weeks time when I was there in India, like we didn't even get a honeymoon. I came back here and then he couldn't come because of the whole green card thing. It took a year. So we were married, but it took him almost a whole year to the date for him to come out here. So he came here and I understand, it's a completely different new place for him. He left his friends and family out there. Cultural difference is definitely going to play a major part in both
Yeah,
of our lives at this point.
that's culture shock.
Culture shock both ways. If I
Mhm.
had gone to India, same thing. As the years went by, I treated his family like my own. I gave him that importance. Every time we'd go back to India to go visit, and we'd go almost every year for a month. And during that month, I would spend maybe a week with my whole family, both
Mhm.
mom and dad's side. But
Right.
3 weeks out of that month, I would give more importance to his side and spend that time with his family, being the good daughter-in-law.
Did they treat you the same?
At times, it seemed like it was okay. So again, after coming here, that whole culture shock happened for him, and then slowly, his mannerisms and his behavior, everything started changing. Alcohol got involved, drugs got involved, and it just kept getting worse and worse and worse, which affected our lives immensely, intimate life and just our life in general. And I'll tell you this, like during the time of our wedding too, like I worked out. I lost a whole like 40 pounds back then. And I, got to a point in my life where I felt good about the way I looked. And then the wedding happened and he knew what I looked like. But after coming here, slowly, like I said, as things were changing, he started treating me badly, started calling, like bullying me almost. Emotional abuse is not easy. It's not
No.
something I wish upon anybody. So, what happens a lot in the South Asian community too, in terms of divorce and that whole stigma? So, a woman gets married off within a year and a half, they have a kid.
Right.
Or if they don't, there must be something wrong with the woman. She can't bear children.
Right.
Why do you have to think about can't the guy could be impotent?
I
Why
mean,
does it have to? Do they not think about that? Like, I mean, what's wrong with his semen? You don't think about that?
no.
Does it have to be the
No.
uterus that's always at fault? No, but that's the way the stigma is. If they don't have children within a year or two, God forbid, something's wrong with the woman.
Yeah.
Okay, great, they have a child. And then it doesn't matter. Like she gets abused by the guy and his family, especially I would say the mother-in-law.
The mother-in-law has likely been abused by her mother-in-law, but instead of stopping it, it's almost like, well, now I need to perpetuate that because I
Correct.
had to go through it. So I'm not going to make your life any easier.
Correct, correct. There was still some pressure at times. Oh, why can't you have children? If you guys have children, things will be fine.
That's
No,
literally worse.
no, it's not necessarily because, and then I'm like, in my head, I'm thinking, no, I'm not bringing a child into this world where even we can't even like stay a day or two without fighting.
Yeah.
So I just kept pushing it off, pushing it off. I'm like, it's my body, first of all, so no,
Yes.
not happening. But that came up a lot during our marriage time. Get a child and things will be fine. How do you know if I bring a child into this world, will you all of a sudden stop drinking and stop,
Yeah.
doing drugs and being a couch potato, being a lazy ass, and just are you gonna all of a sudden get responsibility that you didn't have before? At the time, I was working at the veterinary hospital, so I'd be working 8, 10 hour days, and I'd come home exhausted, and then I still have to come home and cook and clean for his ass. Uh-uh.
No.
You know, a little bit of effort from his side would have made the difference, I would say. By the time I get home, get the dishes done, or just make some rice, or make some food or something. Order some food if you don't want to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's so simple.
just simple things like that just shows me that there's a lot of care and effort that goes into it. But none of that happened. Like I said, drugs and alcohol were involved. things were just going downhill. 2015, I would say, was the most painful, excruciating year of my life. Just in my life in general and during our time of marriage too. One of my best friends passed away.
Right.
Our dog passed away. It just so many things were happening. I couldn't handle it. He was never supportive of any of that.
Yeah.
He used to make fun of the passing of my family, basically.
What's there to make fun of?
No, nothing. Exactly. That's when hit an all-time low. Went through major depression. Cut out family, friends, my friends. I mean, I didn't even talk to you guys
Yeah.
during this whole time. So you guys had no idea what was going on. But I tried to reach out a little bit to my family. They're like, no, fights happen in marriages, and they tried to counsel us back. And then I'm like, you know what? They're just not going to get it. So I stopped talking to them about it. I had a mask on for nearly 4.5 years of that 5 years we were together. That depression put me in this deep, dark hole. Every day I had thoughts of killing myself. The one thing that stopped me from that every single day, I would say, thinking about my parents. I could not put them through that. It was a lot. It was a lot to go through. I know there are many women out there still to this day that go through this emotional abuse, but they're bound down because of this child that happened in their life.
Yeah.
They're stuck. It's just not fair to women.
No.
They should not have to go through this.
Absolutely.
And I don't know, like, I mean, every day, I mean, I used to try to hurt myself a lot, hit myself against walls, try to get a knife. I mean, anything, everything possible. Every day, I used to cry myself to sleep. Could not stand to sleep next to him. I mean, we're practically like roommates at this point. But something about him made him manly to him. And it's like the way he's supposed to treat me, the way he showed that male chauvinist type of dominance.
Yeah.
That doesn't make you manly.
No.
And that's what really surprised me about him, is coming from a women-centric family, right? He had a mother with two elder sisters, and yet he treated women like this.
Was his dad like that by any chance?
The more I kind of got to learn about him and his family, I think so. I know they didn't have a perfect family, but I think that's what he picked up on.
Yeah.
Oh, my dad does this to my mom. He says whatever. She did it for him. My dad's side of the family, we're 8 girls. And so they raised us like we're equals, we're independent. So career was very important to me.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, he kept saying, like, you don't have to work, I'm bringing in the money. And I'm like, I don't care if you're bringing in the money. All this stuff basically just brought me down a lot. I did go through therapy, I went to a therapist and stuff. But with therapists, you start making those little baby steps towards progression. But you need to have that support from home to keep going. But
Right.
I would do this and I would, make those 20 steps maybe going forward, and then stuff happens, and then or 10 steps going forward, and I take 20 steps going backward.
Right.
So it's like I just go way back again. I was always too big for him. He kept saying, "Oh, why don't you work out? Why don't you become thin? Why don't you?" I'm like, "Who are you to tell me? I'm not changing my body image for you." And that
Right.
was something I struggled as, growing up too. I would look at myself in the mirror and I'm like, "Ew." I would hate it. I hated looking at myself. And to think that I would marry someone who would body shame me again
Yeah.
did not help me at all. My
Definitely.
self-esteem, my confidence, everything shot down. I was in such a bad place in my life.
Yeah.
And slowly, I started thinking, like, I don't need this crap anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I just got fed up and I moved out. I'm like, I just need some time. I moved out of the apartment, came back to my parents' place, but he didn't give me enough time, maybe 2 weeks at the most. And then I moved right back. And then it happened 2-3 weeks later and I moved out again. So within 3 months, I probably moved out 3 or 4 times. And like I said, every year we used to go to India. And I said, this year I'm not going with you. It came to a point where he even was like suspecting me of cheating on him.
Kind of sounds like he's projecting the things he would do potentially. You know what I mean?
And I think his own insecurities were coming out by abusing me.
Yeah.
That's what it was. To make him feel manly or that dominance, that's what he was showing by bringing me down so he can say, hey, I feel better about that.
And that's pathetic because that's not what a marriage is. A marriage is 2 people who are supposed to uplift each other. And here you have a guy who's body shaming you, abusing you, and treating you like dirt, like worse than you're treating like.
Basically, like I said, going back to that December, he was going to India.
Yeah.
Another huge fight happened in the car. And I mean, this is something I never really talked to a lot of people. There's like very, very close friends of mine only know this part, but he straight up had the guts to go and to my face call me a prostitute. And I
What?
said, excuse me, what did you just say to me? I
Wait,
was in shock. I pulled over to the shoulder. You don't ever get to call a woman that.
even if they chose to be a sex worker, it's sex worker. It is a job.
It is
It
right.
is,
We are nobody to judge these people.
yeah.
When he said that to me, I just lost it. And I said, "You call your mother up right now." I was pissed.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it anymore. So he called her up, and I'm like, "Do you know what your son just called me?" And this this was the cherry on the cake, right on top of the cake. His mom was like, "Oh, just forgive him, honey. Like he said that out of haste." And I'm like, "Are you kidding me right now? You too? You too? Okay, so if your son-in-laws treated your daughters the same way and called them that, you're okay with it, right?" She didn't have anything to say. And I'm like, "Okay, your son's coming to India. You can keep him. He doesn't
Yeah.
have to come back to me. Even if he does want to, he can find his own way home because I'm not coming to the airport. We're done. By the time he comes back, I will have the divorce papers ready." We were like literally like an exit away from the airport. I should have just left his ass on the side of 101 and just turned around and gone. He's like, "Oh, go park the car and come." Nope. Get your stuff, get out of the car. Bye. And I just drove off. That's when I came out to my parents.
Yeah.
They had no idea what was going on. This was probably the first time in my life that I probably saw my dad cry. He didn't understand. I'm like, "What's more important to you guys? Your daughter's happiness or your pride and dignity in this society? Would you be happy with no child? Would you have been happier if I killed myself?" They had nothing to say. They just listened. I mean, what can you say after all that? That's when they realized maybe this isn't right for me,
So they
right?
finally came around to supporting. They were now supportive of the divorce. Originally,
Ex-
they weren't. Did you ever
They
bring it up
weren't.
before?
I did. There, it was
Yeah.
actually, it was funny because, like I said, 2014 September he moved here. By 2015 December, almost a year later, I was already talking about divorcing him, and they're like, "No, no, that's not. You know, things happen in marriage. People fight, but it's all about compromise. You gotta like talk it out and this and that." And we had our good days,
Hmm.
but I don't remember those.
Yeah.
I honestly don't remember those good days at all. It was always the bad days that I would remember. I used to be scared coming home
Yeah.
from work because I don't know what state I would find him. I'd drive home and I'd sit in my car for about half an hour. Is he going to be drunk off his ass? So I'm going to be coming home to more emotional abuse. When my family came around to it and they saw that it wasn't worth it. And so when I told them, "This is it, we're done," they were like, "Your decision, whatever you want, we're behind you 100%." So once I started getting that support, that foundation, that push from my family too,
Yeah.
that's when I knew. So then he came back a month later and then he kept coming over for the next couple months, week after week, bringing me flowers and gifts. Mind you, in the 5 years that we were together, not once he's given me anything
Too
like
little,
that.
too late, basically, is
Right.
what this is.
Right, exactly. It wasn't about the gifts for me, but just showing me that little bit of love.
Yeah.
Treating me like a human being is all I asked for. Once he came back and started doing all this, I just literally right in front of his face threw them in the trash and I'm like, "Bye." So, and then the divorce, like for the most part, as far as the both parties go, we've signed off on papers. We're just waiting for the judge to do it. Hopefully soon, fingers crossed, that all this nightmare I can just put behind me. I know I went through what I went through. I wish that no woman goes through. But the truth of the fact is, there are tons of women in India still going through all this because they can't get out of it, and just being mistreated by the groom's family. This is something that I wish that all women can really openly talk about. It's okay. It's okay to get divorced. If you're not happy, get the out.
Yeah.
Get out, because nobody else matters in this world but you. I was 25 when I got married, even then that was a little too old in an Indian stigma.
Yeah.
You were 21. By the time my mom was 21, she had, like 25, she had 3 kids.
Right.
It's like, "Oh, you're 25, you're too old already. I'm 30, I'm too old already." It's like, no, women nowadays are so career oriented,
Hmm.
independent.
Hmm.
We can prove that we need no man in our life to be happy.
Yeah.
you
100%.
know Even though I learned that a little too late in my life, and better late than never, I'm so happy right now. you know
I can
I'm
see
doing
it.
so much better
You're
in my life
glowing.
right now. I'm doing so much better in my life right now. I feel great, I look great, got my hair done. I mean, I never felt this good about myself in the 30 years that I've been alive.
You're
And
investing in yourself now, and that's so
yeah,
important.
the word divorce is a taboo.
Yeah.
People, oh, if you're divorced, oh my God, look at the divorcee.
Yeah. Why does it matter? As long as she's happy, who cares, right? That's what it should be.
Right. Let her live her life.
When the rest of the community found out about your divorce, your
Right.
auntie, uncles, whatever, whoever else in your family or just out of your family, but family friends, were they
Right.
supportive of this as well? Or did you have to hear anything from them?
Some people, called me up and they're like, I'm so sorry. They understood, they were supportive and they empathized and stuff. Other people were commenting, oh, well, did you guys try counseling? Did you try this? Or can we try helping? Who are you to tell me this? Did you know what I went through?
Yeah.
Do you know the that I went through? All that negativity, just putting right behind me. I'm just in one ear, out the other. And that's what I told my parents. Going forward, you're going to be hearing a lot of people talk
Yeah.
in front of you, behind you.
Mhm.
And this is one of those, like, and our South Asian community, you say one thing and it spreads like fire. I don't care if people
Yeah.
find out. I'm ready to talk about it. But the only thing I'm going to tell them is it's my story. I lived it. I don't have to explain anything to you. If they ask me, all I'll tell them is it didn't work out. I wasn't happy. I'm happy now. That's all that matters. As far as like my family, friends, and my extended family, like my uncles and aunts back in India too, they were all very supportive. They wanted me to tell my story.
Yeah.
And we were all on video call. And I can just see, like, my aunts, they were crying. They couldn't control their tears. The fact that I had to go through this, and that's what really bothered them.
You know what's like interesting about this to me is that it has to come to a point like this where people understand the other
Right.
person's pain. Like, why
Right.
do you have to even go through the depression, the suicidal thoughts for someone to empathize and say,
Right.
okay, well, now it's fine for her to get a divorce because she went through all this. Why does it even have to be like that? You know?
Why
And
does
it's
it have to come to that certain point? Why did I have to go through 6 years of hell with this to
yeah.
finally get that? Going through this as a family, I would say, brought us closer together.
I'm just so glad that you're happy, that you're free, that you love yourself as you should have always loved yourself.
Right.
Any
Right.
size, any weight, it shouldn't have ever mattered. And I'm so sorry society did that to you, made you question your own self-worth.
I know you've done some videos about all this as well, and those, I mean, it's very personal, and I know you went through a lot of that. It's the same thing. It doesn't matter how you go through it. It's still something hard to talk about.
Well, Mythili, I appreciate you coming forward with your story. You told me a lot of personal stuff, and I appreciate it because I know it's going to help the people who watch it. I'm sure there's so many people who are, like you said, going through this who don't know how even taking the first step to
Right.
get out, or they may not have the family
Right.
support. And at the
Right.
end of the day, the message of just doing it for you
Please
and
do it for yourself. Just I know having that support is going to be that much more important. But if to any of the women watching this, if you need that support, even if nobody else will, you call me. I will be there for you. I'm your gal. You shouldn't have to go through this alone.
well, thank you so much, Mythili. Thank you again for sharing your story.
Of
It was
course.
a pleasure having you
Thank
and
you.
talking about this.
Anytime. Anytime.